Hi everybody, thank you for joining me. I've got not one, but two new books to show you by Luca Perasi, the author of the Paul McCartney Music is Ideas, Volume 1, news on Volume 2 that is going to come later on in this video. But Luca has very kindly sent me these books, thank you Luca, that he's just got out now, The Beatles After the Beatles. So I'm going to tell you what these are. These are available now. I'll drop some links down below if you want to go and have a look at these. So let's concentrate on Volume 1 first, or Part 1. The narrative. So this is the Beatles after the Beatles, the solo careers of John, Paul, George and Ringo from 1967 to 1980. Now you might be thinking, hang on a minute, Paul McCartney's solo career started in 1966 with The Family Way. Yes, that's covered in here. The fact is that that album was released in January 1967, therefore why it says 1967 there. So what are these books and how might they be different from other Beatles books that you may well have? I think the biggest thing with, let's concentrate on Part 1 first of all. The biggest difference here between this and certainly other books that I've got is that this isn't just a book about Paul's career or John's career. This is them all. So this is dealing with things like the breakup, all the financial troubles, the legal battles and everything that they had, as well as concentrating on, as it says for Part 1, the narrative of their story during the 70s. So it's not necessarily focusing too much on the individual songs. It's more about their lives at the time. Part 2 is more about the songs. So I'll come on to that. So this very nice hardback book. If you want to have a pause of that and have a read of the information on the back, then of course feel free to do that. This book is also available in paperback as well, obviously a few pounds cheaper. But in here I will show you the index page and just sort of a general look at what the book looks like. So there's a table of contents. You should be able to see that okay. The table of contents in the discography is a little more obvious as to what it's covering, whereas you can see there we're dealing with fairly sort of generic titles, but essentially this book is broken down into different years and what was happening with the Apple struggles and, like I say, just generally in their own lives. So I think this could be really useful for somebody who wants to have a good in-depth book covering what was going on with all of them. Obviously, if you want a book on Paul McCartney, there's great ones out there, some of which written by Luca himself. If you want a book on John Lennon, there's great ones out there. Not as many when it comes to George and Ringo, but this is a good overview of what was happening with all of them. You can see, if you're interested in any of Luca's other books, then you can see information there about ones that he's got out and also ones that are upcoming. And you'll see there Volume 2 of Music is Ideas, which I said I will cover later. Just to give you an idea of the text size, because I know a lot of people say, oh, the text in some books is too small for me to read. Perfectly understandable. It's a decent size text in here. So hopefully that's accessible to plenty of people. And another thing that I know is of concern to people is there an index at the back? And yes, for example, in this one there is an index of songs at the back there, as you'll see. It's also got this accompanying Part 2. Well, I say accompanying, you would have to buy it separately. But again, lovely hardback book. And again, if you want to have a read of that with a bit of help of a pause, then please do so. I don't think I'm giving anything away by doing this. If you were in a bookshop, you would, of course, be able to have a look at that before you bought it. So this is Part 2, the discography. So again, it's focusing on John, Paul, George and Ringo. So you're not just getting one side of the story. But you will see here, if I open up the table of contents, well, there's actually several pages of table of contents, but you can see that it's broken down into actual projects, albums. Let's not use the word projects. That makes it sound a little not very artistic, does it? But yeah, albums and other sort of records that they were involved in. So you can see the kind of thing that we're dealing in here. So this book goes into a lot more detail about the actual making of the albums, the songs that were on it, rather than sort of their lives as it was at the time. Although, can you really sort of thoroughly demix the two? They're all intertwined, aren't they, their lives and the albums, but generally this is concentrating on the albums. And you can see we've got some pictures in there about things that are going on, for example, during the London Town era. And let's see if I can just pick out some more. There's George Harrison there in the Melody Maker newspaper. And you can see there that we've got sort of posters from the Red Rose Speedway era whilst it's talking about that particular album. So again, like with the first book, this would be really useful for somebody who wants a good overview of all 4 solo careers during, well, up to and including 1980, basically. Obviously, we know what the cut-off point is here, why it's 1980, unfortunately. But there you go. So 2 new books there available. Luca Perasi is one of those authors he's earned his reputation now with the various books that he's got out. I've got a nice little library of them building up here. This was one that came out earlier this year, his deep dive into Band on the Run, which was excellent holiday reading for me on the beach earlier this year. And I said that I was going to be talking a little bit about Volume 2 of Luca's Paul McCartney Music is Ideas. This was a seriously good book that came out a year or so back that focused on 1970 to 1989, all of Paul's projects that he worked on between those years. And so a little bit of extra information now for you about what's happening with this, because the plan was there's going to be a Volume 2 and that'll be coming fairly soon. And that's still the case. That's not changed. But Volume 2 is now going to be covering from 1990 through to 2012, which means that there is going to be a 3rd volume of Music is Ideas. So Lucas said, for example, the main reason for this is that he has now, he thought that he would cover everything in Volume 2, but he has amassed so much more information about that period from interviews that he's done and just extra information he's been able to get, that he felt that it needed to be a 3rd volume. So Volume 2, don't know exactly when it's going to be coming, followed by, at some point in the future, Volume 3. I don't think we knew that information before, so hopefully that's something useful for you to know. So, have you got these books yet? Because they are out now. Are you planning on getting these? Let me know down in the comments as always, or anything about any of others Luca's books that you've read, because I know a lot of you will have been following the books that Luca has printed, because yeah, he's definitely up there with some of the top authors of Beatles books these days, without a doubt. So thank you very much for watching. I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.